Okay, and there, Dr. Hansey, Kevin, can you just throw the link to the handouts in the chat for folks?
Yeah.
I think the last one came just to me.
And if any of the presenters feel like you need to add myself as a co-host, I don't mind admitting anyone in, muting anyone in case they come up. Just let me know. I don't mind at all.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Right now, Charlene is letting people in, but I'm gonna just see if I can get over here to you, Gary, and give you a little bit. Hi, everybody. Let's see, make you co-host. Here you go, Gary. All right, here comes Audrey. All right. So while we're getting started, folks, if you haven't already done so, in the chat, we've included the link to the handouts. You might want to just save it so that you have it and you can pull it up on your screen separately. Or if you have a printer nearby, you might want to print it if you haven't already done so. But today we're going to talk to you about having a mission-driven program. And we are recording. So if there's a reason why you would like us to stop recording for a moment, we can do that. Just make sure you let us know. And then somebody will need to remind me to start recording again because that's my, Achilles heel. But what we're showing you right now on continuous loop here is the mission statement of Regis so that we can talk about how that links. And we're pretty sure that most of you have read and know and are familiar and live our institutional mission statement. But we want to talk a little bit today about what it means to have a program mission statement and what we in the graduate counseling programs are doing with all of that. So do you think we've had that go around enough times? Do we want to wait just one more minute for folks?
That's completely up to you three. Just for the sake of your time, I'm hoping we'll have more people, but that's completely up to all of you.
Okay, well, we all are, so we're recording it so people can always go back and look at it then.
That's right.
Yeah, so once this gets to the end of its loop, Kevin, you can go ahead and stop it and we'll get started.
Excellent.
Oh, good, we've got some more people coming. Maybe we do want to give them a second. And so just a reminder for folks that are just coming in the room, welcome. We're Karen Miranda, Kevin Hinsey, and Brandon Jones from the Graduate Counseling Program. And we've got something on continuous loop for you to look at, just to remind you about the Regis mission as we talk about the program mission. And this is going to be a workshop-y kind of thing. We're going to give you a chance to kind of think about, we can go ahead and stop that there, Kevin. Give you a chance to kind of think about what you might do if you were to have a program mission. And just show of hands, and I think it would be really great if we could use the, the raise hand or the, hand clap or thumbs up or cheers or those sorts of things, just so that we call our attention to you if you would like to talk to us. How many of you have a program mission for your particular program right now? Or you can just stick your hand up because I can see everybody. Anybody? You have one, Karen?
I do, and I don't like it.
Okay.
I kind of inherited it.
That is a great start. Gary, what about you?
I echo the same thing Karen just said. So.
Okay, so before I start the PowerPoint, I am going to share a little background, just a little tiny bit. When I inherited the program, Karen, I didn't even know we had one. And then I was going to fill out the PARs for our program. And it had this little thing and it said mission statement. And do you know what it was? It was the description of our program from our website. It said nothing about what we were going to do. It just said, what, this is a counselor prep program. Nothing about intention, nothing about intention. Okay, so hopefully this will let you think about, revise, or maybe create one for those of you who don't have one. And we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to ask my colleagues to also mind the chat. If something comes up that you need to call my attention to, just let me know. All three of us are going to jump in here, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're not going to be too PowerPointy. I'm going to go back and forth a little bit. So let's go ahead and start this. If you haven't printed the handouts, it's okay. You can go ahead. Can everybody see this okay? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
You can go ahead and print them later. We'll give you a chance to kind of work on things, maybe jot a few things down. That would be fine. But we do want to make sure that you have a chance to kind of think about what we're doing in little pieces. It's not all one big thing. And we didn't do this all in one big thing either. We had a lot of steps. So what we'd like to do first is kind of just share for you our example of our graduate counseling program mission statement. Brandon, would you give us a read on this?
I'd be happy to. So this is our mission at GCP. The graduate counseling programs at Regis are grounded in empirical science, compassionate practice, and social justice advocacy. We are committed to the development of counselors who are guided by theory and ethical awareness, informed by the active inclusivity of intersectional feminism, and dedicated to anti-racist practices. Through a community of collaborative engagement and leadership, we seek to inform and transform mental health delivery systems, reduce stigma and barriers to treatment, and serve our communities in ways that model fairness and instill hope.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna see if I can escape this for a second. Before I go ahead and go back to the PowerPoint, this is our mission statement. I'll keep it up here. I want to show you that we have a page related to this. And we say, this is what intersectional feminism means. This is what intersectionality is. This is what feminism is. This is what anti-racist resources look like. And so we give them resources, and then we also link back to the Center for Inclusive Excellence. And Audrey Grace made sure that there were some things in there that kind of just connected us back and forth. But in the interest of really hearing you, I would like to know, I'm going to stop screen sharing for a second. How many of you feel overwhelmed by our mission statement? Anybody? Does it feel like a lot? No? We're good? It sounds like a good goal. All right. Let me tell you how we broke it down. And before I show you the first thing that we're going to do to break it down, I'd like to let you listen to some of our students talk about it. So I'm going to go ahead and share again. And move this out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. There we go.
The reason why I like being part of a mission-driven program is because I know that when I'm sitting in the classroom next to all of the students that are there with me, I know that before they've applied to the program, they've read through our mission statement, they know that we are committed to being trained as multicultural, anti-racist, intersectional feminist, effective counselors. And I know that I can feel free to be myself in the classroom and really speak my mind about working towards these goals and counseling in the classroom and out.
Yeah, and I completely agree with all of that. And I think it's just so important for all of us as future counselors that we're working together here. We're working towards the same goals. We all have the same kind of mission together. And we're going to continue that once we're in the field as well.
And what the mission statement is to me is I see it as an underlying support that runs through all of my readings and discussion posts in class. And I think having a program that is committed to the ideals of anti-racism and intersectional feminism is key to crafting a generation of counselors who are committed to fighting these systems of oppression. And this program does a great job at that so far.
To me, a large part of wanting to join this program was that it had a mission. To me, the GCP mission in and of itself represents a commitment to not only graduating effective clinicians, but clinicians who are culturally competent and whose values and mindset are going to create progress within our profession.
And I just wanted to say that to me, the Regis College mission statement means that Regis is a place that is welcoming, inclusive, and focused on social justice and equality. Those are some of the many wonderful things about this program. And it is really one of the reasons why I ended up choosing Regis over any other college and this particular program over any other one.
Our GCP mission statement is what introduced me to the program, and it's really what got me initially so interested in this program. You can't find another program mission, at least in Massachusetts, that directly references intersectional feminism and social justice. Those things not only match up with my personal values, but I also feel like it's something that is so pertinent to mental health, and it's almost unbelievable that we are the only ones that
Hi there, my name is Nick Nashi. My pronouns are he and his, and I'm in my last year of the graduate counseling program here at Regis College. Being a mission-driven program has always been a sense of comfort for me since the very beginning of my studies. Our mission gives our learning purpose and direction towards becoming counselors who are not only well-versed in theory and ethical awareness, but also ones that are grounded in social justice and intersectional feminism.
The one thing I loved about the grad counseling program here at Regis is the fact that they had their own mission statement that really resonated with me and the goals that I wanted to achieve, not only as a counselor in training, but just as a human in general. Sometimes as humans, we look into society and the world as a whole and think about the things that we would want to change. But sometimes us people aren't really willing to look in the mirror and do the changes that are necessary within ourselves in order for us to create a better world around us.
Okay, so let's just break this down. Anchoring your mission, what are you about? The graduate counseling programs at Regis are grounded in empirical science, compassionate practice, and social justice advocacy. Gary?
Dr. Jackson had a question.
Oh, sure.
Oh, thanks, Gary. So it's nice to have a mission statement. You know, lots of schools have them. How do you operationalize it? What specific courses or activities do you undertake? You know, syllabi. Guys, show me some stuff, you all, because we couldn't. I mean, Heather's here with me, and she's in my school, and we couldn't have a mission statement because we don't have courses that address it. We don't have activities that address specifically. So how do you all do it? Because we don't. So how do you all do it?
Yeah, we're going to absolutely talk about that today.
Okay.
So if I can ask you to just be a little bit patient. If I
And
don't,
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm muting now.
Okay, no, those are great. Those are great prompts, and we have kept those all in mind. So we've got some of those tidbits for you too. But we just wanted you to start to think about how we break down the mission, and then we've got a few other activities, and we'll tell you what we're doing and where things are showing up. So if you can, think about it right now. Maybe just jot down 3 things that your program is grounded in. I want you to just go with instinct. Okay, and then I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I know this is a little bit annoying going back and forth, but I'd like to hear what's on your list.
I'll add one. I have evidence-based information.
Excellent. Other things?
Hi, I'll go. This is kind of twofold because I'm currently in with the new SLP program, so it's a brand new mission statement, but we're starting a certificate program, and this is amazing because I'm currently writing the mission statement for the certificate. And the first thing that comes to my mind is having access to bilingual therapists for our bilingual learners. It's going to be important in my mission statement.
So something about language inclusivity or something.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, great. And we're going to give you some other components, and you might start playing the shell game, you know, where you're like, oh, maybe I want this to go in this part. And I promise you'll hear from my colleagues in just a few minutes. But I would like to let you hear a little bit more from our students and go through these next 2 steps before we start telling you a little bit about how we're doing it all in our program. Sound good? Okay, was there anything else in the chat that I missed? Okay. Bernard, this may answer a question or two you had too.
And on a day-to-day perspective, I think the mission provides a lens for which to filter through our course material, and it enriches our learnings and our discussions.
The grad counseling program's mission statement is really a beautiful one to me because I not only notice it in my professors, my peers, but even in the learning material.
As a student, I have firsthand experience of seeing how Regis provides an environment and education which encompasses compassion, humility, honesty, and transparency. Being a part of a school that has adopted such a socially conscious mission speaks to Regis's accountability to their ethical and social justice practices, which are invaluable to this counseling program. As a student, my classes are rich in clinical theory as well as steeped in deep discussions around social injustices and barriers to marginalized populations.
It means the world to me that the mission comes through in all of my classes, because I know that I am being, not only does it prove how honest we are as a program, but I also know that I am being so well prepared for my future career.
And through the mission, the professors are dedicated and give encouragement, as well as challenging us with uncomfortable discussions for ways to succeed in our personal growth and in the field as advocates and allies for those that don't have voices. And I think all of our classes are basically structured around the mission, which allows us to do just that.
Okay, so we're committed to the development of counselors who are guided by theory and ethical awareness, informed by the active inclusivity of intersectional feminism, and dedicated to anti-racist practices. Go ahead, take a few minutes and just jot down what are the qualities that you want to guide your students' learning, inform their practice, and what should they embody as community members in your program. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing again so that we can hear from you. Is there anything that just comes to mind right away for you?
I think our students should be guided by a sense of integrity, of commitment to a goal, honest participation. You know, there's no model for this in our society, as you know. So we have to do this, in our classrooms because you're not going to get it. So yeah, we have to work hard to model that, and you know, always stress why it's so important to be persons like that. We want to make some change.
Yeah, true that. That's beautiful, Bernard. And I love the inclusion of integrity. We might have to revise our mission statement, guys. Awesome, thank you. All right, one more short clip, one more brief exercise, and then we're gonna roll up our sleeves and talk about how we're doing it, okay? Anything else in the chat I need to have my attention drawn to? We good? Okay.
Our mission assures that our helping practices stay pure and focused on the mission of helping people. What is the client's best interest, not the organizations or the persons that's helping them. That's why I love being here at Regis. It's like we're sponsored by compassion and love, and what's better than that?
Having this background in anti-racism and intersectional feminism is vital to teaching counselors to see their clients as more whole people who exist within a society that values certain bodies and identities over others, and will ultimately form counselors who can provide more holistic and culturally competent counseling to their clients.
This program is preparing us how to work with clients. But more importantly, its mission focuses our learning on how we can truly listen and understand our clients within a society in which so many feel unheard, misunderstood, and quite frankly, ignored. And I see the benefits already. At my internship, I already feel more prepared compared to the rest of my peers, as I find my approach affecting not only the clients I work with, but the treatment teams that I'm a part of.
As a future therapist, it is my mission to carry forward the education, beliefs, and values that have been instilled in me at Regis. I plan to continue to stay curious and be a strong advocate for my clients. This may involve asking tough questions about social justice inequities which may affect my clients, and I am prepared to seek remedies to these issues to benefit my entire community.
Okay, and so let's talk
Karen,
about.
Karen, can I make a quick comment?
Yeah, please.
Can you tell Liz when you see her that reading a script,
She was
it doesn't work. It
I
doesn't
know,
work.
she-
Just
she
like,
was
you know, I want
so
to know what Liz Kirschenbaum thinks about the program. It's like, you know, you're in the script. That does nothing for me at all. I
I
hope she never reads
know.
scripts to patients or clients. Just
You
talk
know,
from the heart, Liz.
a quick aside, we had this video edited for us from the marketing department. They helped us splice things together. And Liz has a perfectly wonderful free-flowing video that she did, and they chose these clips instead, and we just got them this week. But
That sounds really, really
Heard.
forced. It's
Heard.
forced.
Heard.
That's forced. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good.
I hear you, Bernard. I hear
And
you.
from a counselor. I
Yeah.
mean, from a counselor is one thing, you know, if you have
Yeah.
a first year student, you know, at Regis doing like communication studies, you know, who's nervous, but, you know, being a grad student and counseling, you
Yeah.
certainly want to be more, at least sound more authentic, you know. Nothing against Liz, I don't know her at all, but it just sounds very forced.
Yeah, absolutely. I think she's nervous, but like I said, she made two videos, one with and one without a script, and we wound up with that. And your feedback is helpful because we may want to ask them to revise that before we use it in other ways. So through a community of collaborative engagement and leadership, we seek to inform and transform mental health delivery systems, reduce stigma and barriers to treatment, and serve our communities in ways that model fairness and instill hope. So just jot down a few things. How do you expect them to engage? What impact should your mission have on their professional work? And if you can, just think about one big picture outcome, you know, one big thing you'd like to see happen. Thoughts on this, folks?
Well, specifically in my BS completion program in medical imaging, we looked at, or our students, about 99% of our students are getting into the program because they want to advance in management or some type of leadership. So that's really something where I need to look at our mission statement to make sure that that's, or the program's mission statement to make sure that's something that we're addressing. So
that it shows up in there.
But also that's the double-edged sword where we find students that are coming back strictly because of that and not realizing that there's other parts of, you know, you have to take your general electives, you have to enrich yourself in different ways and just not meet the requirements for, you know, the specific profession that you're in. So that's the issue that I run into.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you. Thanks, Gary. Other folks?
Yeah, it strikes me that if you've got a program where everyone's going to graduate and do the same kind of job, it's rather easier to look at what those outcomes are rather than a program. So undergraduate humanities, right? You know, what that looks like after graduation could be so very varied. So it can't be, oh, you're going to do this kind of job in this kind of way. It's got to be a little more formative.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, but what you just said, Heather, reminded me of like a little meme I saw on social media last night or this morning, or maybe in the middle of the night. And it said something about a liberal arts education, like what's the point of a liberal arts education? And something along the lines, well, you know, those of us who went to this liberal arts school, is from my alma mater, you know, weren't storming the Capitol, believe in science, you know, like there was sort of a list of things that actually brings. So I would actually, like, part of me is like, yeah, it's like so diffuse if you're just kind of in the, no, it's not diffuse if you're in the humanities. You're actually teaching skills, critical thinking skills that I think are really translatable to work. Maybe if you start playing around with that, some things will rise up to the surface. Okay. I want you to hear from my colleagues. I feel like I've talked way more than when we practiced. So let me just see what I've got here next. And maybe what I'll do is instead of relying so heavily on this, I'm just going to skim through them, and then we're going to talk a little bit. So think about how your students can help, who you've got for resources that can help develop your mission. Audrey Grace was really great in working with us. Our advisory board was great. We asked our students what they thought we were doing. And so we wanted to capture what they were already seeing. And then I'll have Mike talk in a minute about the admissions process. It's on our webpage. We use it in open houses. It's in our interviews. We'll talk about that too. And then you have all these handouts available to you. I'd rather just be able to open up discussion with my colleague. And then I want you to kind of use this handout later if you'd like, or while we're talking, to think about where you could put these things. You know, could they be in class discussions? Could they be in Moodle discussions? Do you have assignments that already have those components in them? Could you add those components? Dr. Kevin's got a really good example of something he did this weekend. And then I'm hoping that Dr. Jones-Brandon will talk a little bit more about field work and job support. And then we'll come back to some of this. So let me stop sharing my screen, and we'll say goodbye to Liz for now. There we go. All right. I wasn't sharing my screen. I was looking at the slides myself, but just to give you some stuff that's in the handouts. Mike, can you do us a favor, a solid here, and just let people know, as our admissions counselor, what are the ways that you're interacting with the mission?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, Dr. Moran and I take a real hands-on approach when communicating with prospective students and applicants. I would say, based on the programs I oversee, we are the most communicative and the most, again, mission-driven program here at Regis. In terms of making sure the students who we admit are, you know, they attain to our mission statement, both Regis and the graduate counseling programs, is that we require them to write 2 essays. One is a personal statement and one is an essay addendum. And the essay addendum provides us, or provides the student, space to see how the mission of GCP and Regis aligns with their goals of becoming a future clinical mental health counselor or addictions counselor. And, you know, going through the admissions process, Dr. Moran and I, we can see the students who are, you know, are passionate about counseling and who really, you know, take the mission statement to heart, as you can see in those videos. I know for the videos, we have granted 2 students a scholarship because of their intent to fulfill the mission statement at Regis. So that's a little input about how we, you know, seek out qualified applicants for the program based on our mission statements.
Thanks. And I also want to note, even in Mike's, you know, automatic letter that goes out to inquiries, there's a section in there that references our mission, links to our mission, and kind of gets them primed in that way really early on. But let's get to some of the nitty gritty. Kevin, you want to jump in here and tell folks a little bit about how we're using this? And Brendan, I'll have you do the same too.
Sure. So as context, the courses that I teach within graduate counseling programs are a mixture of substance use and addiction recovery focused courses. I also teach counseling theories courses and our ethics course and career counseling. Historically in counseling, the focus on social justice and multiculturalism has been relegated to a class, which is very common. And you have the diversity class and then the rest of the curriculum. And so I will just add that one of the wonderful things about working in GCP is that the mission has pushed me as an instructor to really infuse intersectional feminism, anti-racism, and the questions around the positionality of the students and myself as an instructor within each class I'm teaching and in the classroom. So an example of that would be this past weekend. We were doing a simulation involving a client who was presenting with a behavioral addiction. And we had an individual come in who role played the client, and the client happened to be female identified and presenting with what some people might view as a shopping addiction. And as the students were discussing their understanding of the client after the fact, I was noticing that the students seemed to be falling into this trap of over pathologizing the individual and not considering context of various sorts. And instead of me saying, wait, I'm noticing something, what I did is I literally cut and paste the mission of our program into the chat box of the Zoom. I asked one of the students to read it aloud. And I asked the students, when you sit with this mission and what this program is about, how does this help you understand this client? I did not have to give them the feedback. They already had the information. They said, well, oh wait, like I remember that article we read where it said that women tend to be overly diagnosed with shopping addiction. And had we considered why this person's shopping to begin with? And what about the various ways that sort of gender socialization are at play? And how does it matter about our own sort of understanding of what it means to be a man and a woman? And what about this person's racial background? Like she's been able to like have this as a way of coping, which is not equitably available to everyone because X, Y, and Z. It led to a very, very rich conversation. And I would add, it's a conversation that would not have been prompted by the textbook. Like the materials that they have for behavioral addictions, diversity is the 2 paragraphs at the end of the textbook chapter. It's a separate chapter at the end of the book. And so what the mission has done is it's helped me prioritize anti-racism, intersectional feminism, and self-reflection around identity in all of the classes. And that work is some of the most meaningful work I'm doing here at Regis.
Thanks, Kevin. I was observing Kevin's class on Sunday when this all happened. And what was really elegant about it was, and you said this, Kevin, but I just want to kind of drive it home, is that they already knew it. They just had forgotten that they knew it.
Yeah.
And giving that to them, I think Alexandra said, it gives us a lens through which we examine everything we do. And so it was just holding up that lens for them. Brandon, how about you and your courses?
So even before I mentioned courses, I want to circle back to the admissions process and thinking a bit about, this reminded me of community, right? So Kevin, you were talking about your class and how helpful it is when you have this mission that sort of becomes this cohesive, this glue that pulls people together and can refocus folks. And how when you have folks who have been steeped in that culture, that there's some special sauce that happens, and that starts really early for us in our program. So even when we do these kinds of open houses or our community meetings. We invite current students to open houses, and we invite prospective students to our community meetings. And I think what that does is it creates this context where really early on, prospective students meeting us, they start to get acculturated to this is what our mission is. And alumni, oh, of course, right, alumni, right. This is what our mission is. And this is how it comes into play from people at different developmental points, right? As their anti-racist and intersectional identities sort of are in development. And I think it's Vygotsky in a sense, right? So you've got this real social cultural sort of microculture that I think is really helpful to name explicitly. I think we do pretty well. And then in courses, I have the privilege of teaching some courses that are typically taken at the beginning, oftentimes at the beginning of a student's career with us. So a social and cultural foundations of counseling course, thought theories courses as well, family counseling, a bunch of sort of foundational courses, but also as field placement director, I get to see folks when they're in the field doing their field placements at practicum and an internship. And so I get to see the arc, which is lovely, particularly in field placement. What's neat is that field placement can become this kind of laboratory, right? So certainly it's a context for students to be developing their skills in real settings. And we're talking about skill development, but also, so this idea of integrity comes to mind. You mentioned this, Bernard, right? And so, Bell Hooks, may she rest in peace. She in The Will to Lead, her book, she was talking about integrity as wholeness. And so one of the questions is, how can counselors be whole people working with other whole people in these contexts that are often run by forces that can separate or sort of pull people apart into different pieces, right? How do you do that work? And so some of it's skill-based, sure, but also it's relational. How do you connect authentically with the person or people that you're working with in the counseling unit, right? But also, how do you work with your supervisors when you as a person have things that are happening because you're a person who's being affected by the environment? But not only that, how do you in your supervisory unit, right, also think about how y'all can affect the system with which you're working too, that you might leave it better than you found it too. And so field placement is a place where we can talk about all those parts in practice. And so there's a student who comes to mind who was a woman of color who was struggling with, how do I show up in this place? Because of a lot of things that she had going on for herself. And so some of the work was around, how do I become a counselor in this setting? Some of it was, I'm seeing these things, I'm connecting authentically, so I'm getting good information about what it's like for these clients that I'm working with, and it's jarring. What do I do with this? And so how do we help this student connect with their supervisor authentically and share what's happening? And then what do you do with that, right? Are there ways in which the person can use or think about the power they do have, even if it's not titular power, to affect some kind of change and to try it out and maybe leave something? And so this person created a group that was on microaggressions that lived beyond the person's time at their setting, right? So they left their setting better than they started, right? And so I really think that, and then all this happened, right? And we do a lot of reflective journaling because we're a counseling program, of course, right? And so you see people thinking about what this means for them personally, what it means for them interpersonally, what it means for them systemically, and seeing how they navigate those along the way. And so circling back to integrity, right? It's really trying to find ways of honoring that wholeness all throughout. Those are my thoughts.
And that was almost like a boom right back to our institution's mission and how looking at the whole person matters. And so the threads are there kind of going back and forth. And we do it in, a way that I think is mindful of that bigger picture and the smaller picture. I think, Brandon, you pointed that out so eloquently. I want to also give an example because, I know you're probably thinking, well, I don't teach a counseling program. So easy to do in counseling. Well, I teach the clinical research course in our program. And they don't do any counseling in there. They don't do any role plays. They don't no client facing stuff at all. And one of the first things they need to do is make sure that they get their APA 7th format right, because no matter how many times we post the resources for them, they ignore them. So the first assignment they have is a literature review that has to be an impeccable APA 7th format. But what they need to do is do a literature review on an intersectional group, and then pick a mental health issue and look at that intersection and the mental health issue in the literature on that. They do a literature review, and then they do a social justice analysis. And that social justice analysis is, how are the people that were discussed in the literature that you read portrayed in that literature? What was there? How did they discuss these folks? And what also was missing? And I remember one of my clients, my students, getting really mad that she couldn't find a piece of literature for Black women with eating disorders that didn't talk about binge eating. It almost exclusively focused on binge eating and didn't focus on any other types of eating disorders. And she was angry, at this from a system standpoint, but they weren't even looking at the practice. They were only looking at the research at this point. So it just really kind of got them thinking about the systems that inform the work that they do. And it was just a nice way to say, hey, we can put this in an assignment that doesn't really have anything to do with direct counseling at the start. What questions do you have for us? What would be helpful to hear from us? Because we have stories we can tell you, but we want to know what you want to hear about.
As a counseling program, and I know Brandon has been part of this for a first year seminar, making a presentation to student body. Have you thought more about when it comes to onboarding for faculty and staff, sort of getting more involved? And this is something I can talk to Audrey about too, just about sort of cultural competency. It seems like it's not the focus of many programs. Like for instance, Charlene is a business prof, and I don't know how, because business is so constrained, like nursing is so constrained, how do you sort of like put that in? But you want ethical business persons. You want the kind of persons who sort of think with integrity, are honest, with their clients, persons who you can look to as, paragons. We're producing kind of persons like that in the business world. These are the persons we can look to and go, this person is doing excellent work, and this person is a person of value, that kind of thing. So I feel like we have talk in our institution, but I don't think enough of the resources that we have at our institution are sort of focused in on creating a certain kind of community. And I would love to see your students, sort of become part of a larger project of helping to sort of, transform our institution, like that kind of thing. And so I think counseling is a great place. I was at the University of Iowa for graduate school, and that was one of our prize departments. It was, I think it was the Writers Workshop, world famous Writers Workshop, and our counseling psychology was maybe top 5. I mean, Minnesota, Iowa, great programs. And I just remember how integrated they were with community, with Iowa City community. They just sort of like, that was part of their, that part of their work. And I feel like, Weston's fine. They think they're fine, Weston's fine. But our community as Regis, Weston wanted nothing to do with Regis. But having to do with our community, I think would be better, sort of that outreach. Because I love what Brandon and the other counselor have done when they come to first year seminar. You know, when we have those, Brandon, we have those kids in the room, that's been really valuable. And one of the most valuable parts of their experience first year seminar. Sort of like, you know, we're here for you, to support you. We know what you come to college with and what college creates. And so we're here for you. And so it's been really valuable. I like to see that more. You know, I like to see more of you all's presence in the university at whole. That's what I like to see.
Thank you. Thank you for that invitation too. Giovanni Guzman, who had spoken in a couple of those videos, actually spoke about the institutional mission to the campus community on Founders Day. And our Liz, who is amazing, and you need to meet her in real life. Our Liz is going to be working for the next year and a half, actually, in the College Counseling Center. With Catherine and Brandon and others. And she recently did this thing that makes me kind of think about what you're talking about. She was in one of my classes. We had people from the community come in, friends of mine who are, you know, actors and really good at role play, and really challenged her on something that is related to anti-racism. And she offered to allow us to use that in another class. Now, the client, the person who played the client, only gave permission for us to use that with me present, showing it, etc. And we wanted to protect that person. But what Liz did is she said, use me. You know, I did a lot of things right, but I also did a lot of things wrong. And like, let's use that. And then really opened a discussion about white privilege and how that impacted her lens. Even though she's been doing this work in the program, things still sort of seep in where the client would say, I can't do that as a Black male. And her response was, you're absolutely right. You know, and so that realization, you know, bringing it and sharing it. So we'll have to think about other ways that we can kind of take this on the road.
Yeah, I just one quick one. I'll shut up. I swear. Is sometimes we have men and women's nights at Regis.
What?
And I would love to. And so undergrads come, and so we have a little food. You know, I do the men's nights, and we have a little food. And what's great is that a lot of the athletes come to these things because the coaches make them. Some of the athletes harbor some of the more abhorrent attitudes about women, and so we try to talk about those things and about different sorts of things because they're athletes. I mean, you know, they've been coddled. A lot have been coddled for a long time, and very insular sorts of environments. And so getting some from counseling, just talking to the students about certain issues, I think is good because, you know, I'm a philosopher and, you know, we have our serious limitations. But you guys have some really focused training in this area. So that's good. That's good. And so I think any opportunity to talk to our young folks about being, like, I love to say, a whole person and what that entails. And that means also thinking about the common good, about the dear neighbor with distinction. Well, I won't start that that conversation now, but but that whole thing. So I think any opportunity to do that would be great. And of course you can get some recruits to your
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bernard. Audrey, and then Kevin.
Well, Kevin go first. Probably.
Go ahead, Audrey. I think our comments may well be connected, so please go ahead.
Maybe I just love the breadth of what you've done here with the mission statement. And your first prompt was, what is your program grounded in? But it seems like in the construction of this is that you not only looked at what you're grounded in, but what you aspire to be grounded in. And using that. And so I know Bernard's first comment was, you know, how do we even write a mission statement if we don't have it lived out? But part of that was a reflection of what you want to see in your program and in your students. And I also love that, which I think is universal, the opportunity to use the mission statement for not only individual self-reflection, but also seeing oneself as part of a community and a collective system, understanding where one's position is in a system so that when we do effectuate systemic change, or even when we're looking for a job placement in a larger organization, that we have a firm sense of self, so we know which careers we want to take, or even what we're sacrificing when we take certain careers in certain positions. And we're centering and grounding ourselves in that moment too. And I think that's truly universal. that we can have that not only individual self-development, but how one is positioned in the system. So thank you for that.
Thank you. You've been so supportive of us in this journey. And so, you know, I really do want to acknowledge that. I know you're like, no, 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 but yes, yes, yes. For us to be able to, I think our mission statement's bold, but it's exactly what we want to say. It's exactly what we are doing. It's exactly what we want to be doing. It's all of those things. And to have, you know, the Office of Diversity, Equity and Inclusion be involved and supportive of this, that meant a lot. And I just don't want to let that one just go by. Okay. So just nod and accept.
I will say you do push us to be better, because a lot of it was having us sort of update some of our, so we're supporting people in and understanding what intersectional feminism means institutionally. So thank you for that too.
Pleasure. Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, I had two comments. The first relates to this notion of a bold mission. And I think it's possible to have a bold mission that is specific to your discipline. And because when we think about the ideals that might guide practice in your discipline, like integrity is, as Bernard mentioned earlier, integrity is bold. Like, there's not a lot of integrity right now going on in the world. So, you know, to actually have that as a touch point and have students speak to that in their admission essays, to have conversations in the classroom or paper assignments that do, I'm making this up, that do an integrity analysis. I just made that up, right? But doing some type of analysis that's part of the mission, I think all of that is possible. And I would argue what's needed, right? So the purpose of our workshop is not to say that every single program at Regis needs to identify intersectional feminism and anti-racism as the ideals that they're rooting, even though we love that, right? That'd be awesome. But we also understand that, like in business, that ethics might be one of the top ideals. And if you're really going to be an ethical in business, that's actually quite hard to do at times. And so how do you do that? So that's my first comment. Yeah, Heather, you're muted.
There we go. Yeah, it took me like 7 clicks to unmute that darn thing. It's maybe unrelated, so maybe you should continue and then I should raise this later.
Sure. The second point is a point that sort of springboards off of something Bernard you shared earlier about the importance of connecting to other members of the Regis community and sort of sharing the love, you know, and finding ways of encouraging action and change around cultural competency. And that feedback, I will add, was actually feedback that came out of a group I was a part of that involved other faculty. The mission feedback, we had some process where we were looking at the strategic plan and giving feedback. And one of the comments that one of the folks in my group said was, I feel like we have folks here at Regis that know certain, like we're talking a different language, that we have people here and there's an expectation that everyone is knowing the same thing and we don't. And like, how can we find ways of coming together and learning from one another? And I heard Bernard's examples as with students, and also, I mean, I will add to that, and you might have shared this too, Bernard, that it's also with us, right, as faculty.
Thank you, Kevin. Heather?
So my question was assessment. Have you, since you've got this mission statement in place, have you done anything on the back end to see if students are, or to measure how students are growing, or, you know, are you doing what you're saying that you want to do?
Yeah, so Brandon and I have been working on you know, a survey tool kind of, you know, to go through that as we prepare for things like, you know, program review and accreditation and all of that as well. I will say this anecdotally, because I think it's like one of the things that we need to be able to figure out how to operationalize and measure. And that's that our students are getting multiple job offers, yay. And they're being asked questions like, how does social justice impact your counseling work? And they fluently can answer these questions because they've been doing it, you know, for 20 classes at least with us. And so, you know, we've got a lot to pull apart there. But one of the slides in the handouts suggests that you look at your SLOs, and then you look at your program SLOs, and then you kind of go back to what your mission's doing, and then your mission back to your SLOs, and kind of see if there are gaps. And so when we do our regular measurements of our SLOs, we're also drawing on that as well. And that's our hope, that, you know, there's a lot of work to do. And you see the three of us right here, there's 2 full-time and 1 half-time person, and that's our whole department. You know, plus some adjuncts, lovely adjuncts. So anybody who wants to get us more people, we'll be able to do some more of that stuff. Brendan, can you talk just for a second too about that kind of like, you know, students going out to internship, students going out, you know, because you see them right before job interviews and stuff like that, and many of them consult with you because they're in your internship seminar. Is there anything else that you can think of that we haven't touched upon that would be helpful for people to think about?
So I think that we've covered most of the bases generally. Thanks for circling back to the idea that our students who are applying for jobs are getting asked specifically about whether it's not always as specific as anti-racist practices, although some of them it is that specific, but social justice is certain, and how they apply is certainly becoming the norm for sure. I think what has been also challenging too, right, is that this is a struggle for our field writ large, right? So we live in this context where we're trying as a field to be more grounded in praxis, right? So not as much talk, right, but actually, you know, action-based endeavors too. And so part of the work is helping students to discern the level of commitment that the prospective settings have to this kind of work, and using that information to make decisions about where they want to go. That's something that that's part of what we talk about and what we do in field placement. I'd also add that in revise, so in terms of outcomes too, part of the supervisor evaluations also that we're having is sort of trying to get another source of information about how students are developing in terms of their measurable skills, right, in being social justice advocates, but also incorporating them into clinical work too. And we're thinking about ways of broadening that measurement too, as we think about accreditation as well. I think those are some of the highlights that come to mind for me. Yeah. Was there anything else that I missed that we had talked about in one of our prep meetings?
I don't think so. I'm also mindful of the time. We're at 1:29,
Sure.
and y'all might want to be going to a 1:30 event. People from the FDRC, is that when the next one starts? Yeah,
I
okay.
believe 1:45 and
1:45.
2:00 for some for one of the other ones.
Oh, okay. So we do have a few minutes to just kind of wrap up. I also want to be mindful of, you know, things like bio breaks and things like that you might all need. We've all been staring at screens all day. But Audrey Grace has offered us some time in March. I think it's March 22nd, to talk again about social justice and social justice in action, and sort of how we put some things in action. And because that's an open community event, it's a lunch and learn kind of thing. I'd like to hear from all of you. Are there things, if we, you know, this is sort of part 2, we'll offer this video for people to watch before that. Are there some things that you'd like to to have us do or talk about or at that point? Heather?
Grouping people with folks in their discipline so that people can start bouncing ideas off one another and doing concrete work would be really helpful.
Awesome. Great, great. We can create that space. And in the handouts, we say, identify 2 people that you can talk to, you know, try to get them on board and get as many people as you can to come to that event. Brandon?
I was just saying farewell to Bernard.
Oh, okay.
Take care.
Bye, Bernard. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for your contributions. Anybody else, anything before we say goodbye? Anything else you'd like us to keep in mind going forward? You can always email us too and say, hey, I'm coming to that thing in March and I've started to work on my mission statement and I really want to learn a little bit more about how you're doing this in XYZ. You know, we can bring some examples of assignments or things like that if that helps.
Karen, I just want to say congratulations to your team, because I was on that committee, that the mission committee for the whole community, where we revised or brought our mission statement up to date, and what a challenge that was. We already had a mission statement that was, you know, almost 100 years old, right? That had been revised along the way, but to have to start and just create your own, yeah, it's quite a job to do. But if Audrey was available, I'm sure that was a great help as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm also going to be doing, for the Pride Lecture Series, I'm also going to be doing a thing on intersectionality coming up, and can share those dates with you as well. So some of the stuff that's part of our mission, we are, you know, going back to Bernard's statement, we are going to be sharing with the larger community. But let us know what we can do. You know, we would like to help. And thank you for attending our workshop.
On behalf of FDRC, thank you so much for presenting today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to stop recording.
Thank you.
Thank you for leading the way.